Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another buddy fight video. Today I'm gonna kind of show you how I would go about making or defining what a good budget deck is. So as the example for today, I'm going to be using Bladedancers or Excelblades, whatever you prefer to call them by, but doesn't matter. I'm just using them as a good example because they're just a really easy example. So usually when I start building buddy fight decks, especially on a budget, I generally look to see what archetype has a cheap engine to use. And what I mean by engine is a cheap, like monetarily cheap ways for the deck to have good card draw and gauge gaining, on top of searching or filtering, whatever, the ways to gain resources efficiently and for as monetarily cheap as possible. So, as the example with Bladedancers, Forging from Fire, Fusion Style, Stance of Starting Ichi, Banquet of the Unrighteous, Magnetic Swordsman Neo, Silver Orchid Swordsman Suzu are all great engine cards to help get the deck rolling, and they're all very, very cheap and efficient cards. A single card on this list is no more than $1. So you could build this deck really, really cheaply, and then it has some good, efficient, and effective upgrades or upgrade paths that you could take. But regardless, having a solid resource engine definitely is very, very important for any budget deck, because if you can't necessarily get to the cards that you need to get to, then the deck becomes very, very hard to play. So having a good engine is very good, and with Bladedancers as the example, they have a lot of different cheap and efficient engine cards. The second most important thing that I look for when building a budget deck is the win condition. So how does the deck win? So you first would need to understand what the deck is trying to do, and this strategy will vary from deck to deck, but in Bladedancers it's a little bit easier, considering usually they like to have a size 2, size 1 item formation. There really wasn't a whole lot of options as far as cheap size 2s, so our win condition card is going to be Alloy Instructor SHAKUDO, and he is basically just a crit boost and penetrate style deck. Using him as the primary win condition, we need to see what is the best complementary card to go with him. And the best complementary card to go with him is Sword Conductor RIN, because he will give them all plus 3,000 power, plus 1 crit and penetrate, and then RIN on top of that, she would get triple attack. So she would be a 3 crit triple attack penetrator, which is already pretty scary and can be pretty powerful, and that's not even including the fact that he gets buffs and then other things get buffs. So this is just kind of like the basic win condition board setup that you're looking to get into with this deck. But as I said, it'll vary from deck to deck on how the deck actually wins. This was just a very good example to use, because even though there are better options on how Bladedancers can win, this is just a very basic one. And then on top of the win condition, the last thing I look at is the supporting cards. So can you find cheap and efficient supporting cards to help the deck? And with Bladedancers, there's a whole bunch of cheap and efficient supporting cards. So you have Rainbow Swordsman Titan, which kind of acts as like pseudo card draw, which is pretty good considering Banquet of the Unrighteous helps feed our graves, so there's a little bit of synergy between the two, so he was just an easy fit in. Heavy Swordsman Namari, which is basically just a monster form of defense, which isn't bad. You have Fusion Style Training Grounds, which is just probably one of the best cards in Bladedancers regardless. So you'd be running it in the full deck anyway, but it's just a really solid card. Then you have Fusion Style Steadfast Sequence the First, which is just another defense spell that also gains a little bit of resource. Cherry Blossom Dance to help protect our item, because unfortunately, if you're playing the budget version, you're probably going to be using the cheapest item, which is the common, and the common doesn't have any immunities, so you need to have some sort of protection. Demon Way Sakrafubuki is just a spell null, and then you have the Impact, which is basically just an overglorified defense spell that also burns the opponent. So overall, like, the deck is just being very, very efficient at what it's trying to do, and then having a cheap engine on top of a cheap win con also just really helps solidify the deck overall. And then as far as easy upgrades go, depending on the deck, that'll vary, but you'll usually put in the main buddy over the cheap replacement, and then you just find other good supporting cards that just might fit in a little bit better than what is currently in the deck. So that's kind of all I really look for when it comes to budget decks. Is the card engine good? Is the win con like doable? And are the supporting cards there? It might sound a little bit easier than what I'm putting it as, and that's because it kind of is. You just have to like do a little bit of research and search for all of the proper cards, because there's plenty of good cheap budget buddy fight decks. It's just not many people are exploring them because everyone's trying to think hyper competitive, top tier meta, most expensive and most efficient cards. And sometimes it doesn't always need to be that way, because that's not what everyone wants out of the game. Some people just want a cheap buddy fight deck just to have a fun time to mess around with friends. Like, it's not always about trying to be the most efficient and the most optimized. Sometimes it's just trying to find the best you can with the limited budget you have. So just as an example, like this deck right now, you could buy every single card, and it will cost you a little less than $20 plus shipping. So, like, cheap decks are out there. You just gotta take the time to find and explore them. And I definitely think Bladedancers is a good one to start with, just because it has all of the solid foundations of easy upgrade paths, good win condition, cheap and efficient cards. Like, it's just not a bad deck to start as a budget deck. So that's kind of all I have on this video. I am thinking about doing more budget deck videos like this. Please tell me in the comments below if you really enjoy this type of content. And as always, I will have a deck list in the description below. Feel free to like and subscribe for more buddy fight content, and I'll see you in the next video.